We won't wait. We won't run. We'll conjure up the courage we need to create solutions for our homeland.
Our Africa.
With our courage, we will innovate for our time.
We will raise up a new generation of independent actors who, with us, will build a new tomorrow.
We won't wait. We won't run.
We'll do it ourselves. We are #DIY Africa.
Welcome to #DIY Africa, presented by the Civic Tech Innovation Forum and Jamfest.
Welcome everyone, wherever you are around the world. Just before we get started, to make sure that all of you can listen in the language that you need, take a look at these housekeeping rules. First of all, everyone will be muted. Please use the Q&A box to ask questions. And the chat function is also there. Now for interpretation, there are some speakers in French, mostly in English. So for French interpretation, you'll see that there will be a globe icon, a world globe icon, and you click on that, which brings a drop-down menu. Select French or English if it's in the French-speaking part, and then you mute the original audio. And then once the speaker has been muted, translations should automatically become audible. So strap in, and I think that's it. We can get going. Okay, so this session is really beyond hybrid. It's part of the IPI World Congress of the IPI Global Network of Editors and Journalists. And it's our opening session. And it's also part of Jamfest, the festival to rewire and reboot digital media in Africa. It's a natural pairing, if you like. It's a collaboration committed to seizing the moment of change to build our media for the future. And in this session, we're dealing with a big issue: innovation in distribution of news on messaging platforms. Now, IPI is a global network of journalists, editors, and publishers for high-integrity independent journalism around the world. And since we launched in 1950, collaboration has always been key to our strength. So it makes so much sense that the first session of the IPI World Congress is a collaboration with our friends at Jamlab. And I want to thank at the outset Seppo and his team for working with us on this session. I'm Jackie Park, and I'm the head of network strategy and innovation at IPI. So when our audience of news consumers can be found on messaging platforms, well, we have to be there too. And media in Africa have been among the leaders in grabbing the opportunities that this challenge offers. So I'm delighted we have some of the brightest reporters and thinkers who've been innovating journalism across the continent. They're going to share their secrets on how they're successfully using messaging apps and platforms to distribute news, and to help us think about, just what are the opportunities for journalism. Each of our speakers in this session will highlight their own organisation with a focus on the distribution channels and the models that they've implemented within their newsrooms. They'll share what's worked and hopefully what hasn't worked as well, so we can all learn. So in this order, we're going to hear from Richard Akinwumi, who's the head of digital strategy and technology at Nigeria's Premium Times; Emily Gouet, who's a journalist, presenter, and director of plural media at Aminet in Burkina Faso; Mungo Sobat, who's CEO of South Africa's Scroller; and Tabisa Sekula, who's a distribution manager at Scroller. Sipho Kings, who's editorial director of The Continent, an Africa-wide network, but out of South Africa; and Mahida Sibat from Tikva in Ethiopia. And a little later, we'll be joined by Sinato Saka, who's a journalist editorial project manager at RFI. Unfortunately, she had to duck out and do her own program, but she'll be with us a bit later to talk about the experience that they've had in Benin. So we've got 90 minutes, and each of our guests will speak for around 7 minutes, and we'll have plenty of time for questions and comments. And, don't wait until they finish. As I mentioned, feel free to chat in the chat box. That's always great to follow along. And to put your questions in the Q&A box so our panelists can turn to those in the second part of this session. So let's start then. Let's jump straight in. Richard, would you like to start?
All right, thank you, Jackie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Akinwumi. I work with Premium Times, head of digital strategy and technology. I'll be sharing my screen in minutes. Just have a little presentation about what we've done, how we've been able to use messaging apps to drive traffic. I'll be focusing on the messaging apps themselves, not the entire social media. Okay. I've done the introduction already. I'll just quickly introduce Premium Times to us and talk about the organization a little bit. Premium Times is 10 years old. Yeah, we started out in 2011, and with the vision to help strengthen Nigeria's democracy and advance the social, economic well-being and rights of the people in Nigeria. And of course, we like to achieve this, to promote the values of a modern democratic state in Nigeria. And we believe that of all the institutions of democracy, media matter in large measure. It can help forge new communities, political social agenda in support of a better society, and also help build visions and hope for it. Sadly, the media has also led in negative directions, as we've seen in the past in Nigeria, especially dividing people, issue. And in our country, the media have played both roles at different times in our history. So Premium Times came in at a time where Nigeria really needed the right kind of information to get to people in terms of factual news and breaking news. But most importantly, factual. So we bring a huge commitment of our country, the type of media that we advocate for the people and nudge our nation, part of development and social media. So that's what Premium Times is all about, of introduction, and that's what we've tried as much as possible to do in the past 10 years. Focusing on distribution alone, just like to share our traffic acquisition, first half of 2021, and this is post-COVID, of course. And Premium Times has grown organically from when we started. We've always worked so hard to push our content naturally, without the help of bots and paid traffic. So we have 48% of our traffic come directly. So we have people coming directly to the website, and 32% of our traffic come from organic searches. People going to the likes of Google, Bing, and the popular search engines to come to our site. And we have 13% of our traffic coming from social media, social networks generally, and the others and referrals of 7%. I'm going to talk about our content distribution, focusing on social media alone now. Facebook, of course, I would believe it's the biggest referral, social referral for most news platforms, Premium Times inclusive. By Twitter, unfortunately, with the Twitter ban, many newsrooms suffered a lot of reduction in the traffic they see coming from Twitter, which of course some people still use VPN to access Twitter even from Nigeria. But for us as newsrooms, it's difficult to track that coming from Nigeria because once you're on VPN, you're actually, connecting from any part of the world except Nigeria. And we invested a lot also in Instagram and Reddit and Discord. And we've also been able to distribute our content through several forums. Invested in Yahoo groups, Nairaland, and recently Quora, distributing our content there, and we're engaging with the messaging platforms, which is today's session. Of course, we know WhatsApp is the biggest, it's over 2 billion active monthly users. And we've also tried in the past to do SMS distribution, and recently Telegram. I would like to talk about the early days of premium times. And of course, those were the BBM frenzy days. It was a period, thankfully, premium times launched in 2011 when the whole environment and the major thing everybody held in their hand was a BlackBerry phone. So then, I don't know if any of you will still remember how the whole used to go crazy for who was your BB pin, what's your BBM pin, what's your BBM pin, and the likes. So premium times utilized BlackBerry a lot when we started, and we're able to create a BBM channel. We're even able to use about 4 or 5 BlackBerry phones, to drive content to feed people news directly on their phones. Before, of course, we don't know what happened to BBM. We also did SMS subscription to your phone because we realized that people may not have data at that point in time. Or you may not have enough funds to subscribe for a big data package. So we partnered with some of the telecommunications companies in Nigeria where you can subscribe for as little as 100 Naira every week, and you get the new headline of the news delivered to your phone, and the link if you care to read more. So that happened. And, we're still exploring, actually. We're still exploring a lot of other platforms, but we see that Telegram is a channel that's promising for us. And, we're really, really working out to explore that as part of our messaging platform that we're going to invest in. We are actually also WhatsApp groups, and we've been doing an experiment for over a year, using WhatsApp, particularly focusing on other language platform, which is Hausa language. The Hausa language is widely spoken, in northern part of Nigeria and across Africa. So we have that platform where we've actually experimented WhatsApp of 5 different groups. We feed people use there in the Hausa language, and also have a platform in English language where we have intellectuals, people in society, people who drive policy, that we share news there and we receive comments from them. That's supposed to. We're still talking about WhatsApp. One major challenge with WhatsApp, which we know, and which sometimes as an organization has actually tried to look for ways to come in and help here, is WhatsApp is the most popular platform for spreading misinformation in Nigeria here. And because it belongs to all manner of groups and people just, something has happened here, you send it, and it has gone to a whole number of people. And most of the time, this information is fake. So we've been able to combat this, with premium times project called Dubawa, a fact-checking project. So when we receive these news that we believe are probably not true on all those WhatsApp platforms that we wrote, we channel them to the Dubawa project, where the fact-checking is done, and we publish the fact-check. Dubawa has its own website, and most of the time we jointly publish this fact-check. So the challenge is with the messaging platforms that we have is one, the maximum number of participants in the WhatsApp group is 56. So that's a bit challenging. Even Facebook Messenger that we also use, the maximum number of participants in the group is 250. Another challenge is the engagement, because so using these messaging platforms, except in cases where we have to lock it that people can comment, when you expect people to comment and engage. So the challenge here is managing those engagement and those responses can be a lot of work. And one of the things about it, analytics tools are poor and exist. Unlike Facebook, where you have Facebook Insight, actually gives you a nice brief about what your visitors are doing, what they are reading, how they're coming. The likes of WhatsApp don't have that. And so it's a challenge for us. But this will be, just to wrap it up, the end of my very short presentation, as I wait for my other colleagues to also do their presentation and questions after. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard.
Yes, Jack.
Emily. And Emily will be speaking in French.
Est-ce que là, c'est bon? C'est bon?
Yes, yes.
Je peux y
Yes, we
aller?
can.
D'accord. Bonjour à tous, je suis Gay Amélie, je suis journaliste et je suis la promotrice d'un projet média appelé Aminette. Aminette, déjà, pourquoi l'émission? C'est une émission exclusivement dédiée aux réseaux sociaux, aux médias sociaux et aux technologies. Nous sommes partis du constat que, surtout en Afrique, il est indéniable de dire aujourd'hui qu'il est indéniable que les réseaux sociaux jouent un rôle important dans nos sociétés et dans nos pays, surtout au Burkina Faso, qui a connu une insurrection et un coup d'État. On sait, pour avoir suivi et pour avoir été aussi sur le terrain, on sait ce que ces réseaux sociaux ont apporté dans ces événements majeurs dans l'histoire du Burkina Faso. Et nous sommes donc partis de ce conseil, nous nous sommes dit qu'il nous fallait une émission dédiée à ces médias sociaux et aux technologies. Aminette, c'est une émission hebdomadaire. Chaque semaine, nous faisons un récap de ce qui a fait l'actualité sur les réseaux sociaux. Et aussi, on essaie d'aborder certains points. Nous avons notamment 5 rubriques. Je ne sais pas si on peut diffuser en même temps. J'avais demandé à Tchepo, je ne sais pas si c'est OK. Voilà. Donc, l'émission est diffusée chaque semaine sur BF1 et comme je l'ai dit tantôt, nous essayons de revenir un peu déjà sur ce qui a fait l'actualité sur les médias sociaux. Nous sommes dans une optique d'innovation et pour l'émission, nous n'avons pas, tout le monde n'est pas journaliste, la particularité de l'émission. Nous avons des blogueurs parmi nous dans l'émission, nous avons des entrepreneurs dans le TIC. Nous avons aussi parmi nous des youtubeurs, une youtubeuse particulièrement. Nous avons aussi un humoriste dans l'équipe qui anime l'émission. L'idée ici, c'est de regrouper un peu ces différents profils-là, chacun pouvant apporter sa touche notamment pour l'émission. Nous avons donc 5 rubriques. On a une première rubrique que nous avons appelée les actus de la semaine. On revient sur ce qui a fait l'actualité sur les réseaux sociaux. Et cette rubrique animée par un humoriste, on essaie d'apporter un brin d'humour en abordant ces questions, mais tout en faisant passer derrière des messages, en essayant de sensibiliser et aussi de conscientiser sur certains faits qui se passent sur les réseaux sociaux. On a une seconde rubrique que nous avons appelée micro-trottinant. On essaie de partir un peu avec des acteurs qui animent la toile et aussi sont experts dans divers domaines en lien avec ces métiers-là et qui aussi font passer des messages que nous avons appelés messages aux amis du net. Et généralement, c'est des conseils qui sont donnés aux internautes sur l'usage à faire des réseaux sociaux. On a une rubrique que nous avons appelée Lucam. On essaie de montrer un peu ces facilités que nous offrent les technologies à travers la rubrique. Donc, il y a une blogueuse qui anime cette rubrique. On a un geek avec nous et sa rubrique s'appelle Le Coin du Geek. Lui, il essaie généralement de revenir un peu, de nous faire des tests ou bien de montrer un peu ce qu'on doit retenir ou bien ce qu'il y a comme actualité sur les réseaux sociaux ou bien sur les technologies ou bien sur les geeks. Il fait aussi des tests gadgets. Et on va voir plus tard un peu des visuels en lien avec cela. On a une youtubeuse avec nous qui partage assez souvent des tutoriels et sur plein de sujets qui intéressent généralement les femmes. On va aller dans la deuxième, le numéro 2. Déjà, comment nous nous organisons? Nous, déjà pour l'équipe, nous sommes organisés. Nous communiquons essentiellement à distance. On ne se réunit pas. On se réunit d'abord à distance via WhatsApp. Comme on revient souvent sur des sujets qui ont fait l'actualité sur les réseaux sociaux, ce qu'on fait, c'est qu'on partage, puisque ce que l'on voit, ce n'est pas forcément ce que l'autre voit. Donc, on essaie de partager ensemble les sujets qu'on voit sur la toile pour la personne qui anime la chronique actu de la semaine, pour qu'il puisse avoir assez d'éléments sur ce qui a animé la toile. Et donc, ça, généralement, ça se passe dans un groupe WhatsApp où, généralement, on partage uniquement, dans ce groupe, nous partageons uniquement que les informations ou bien les posts et autres publications que nous jugeons d'utilité. Dans le groupe, parfois, on échange sur les sujets, mais à la fin, c'est celui qui anime la rubrique actu de la semaine qui pioche dans ces sujets qu'il voit pour faire sa rubrique de la semaine. Et nous avons un groupe Telegram dans lequel nous essayons généralement d'organiser des salons vocaux. Là, ce sont des réunions que nous organisons via Telegram. Et généralement, on essaie de faire le point sur ce qu'il y a abordé comme information, comme le numéro de la semaine. Et aussi, s'il y a des sujets particuliers, c'est dans le groupe Telegram que nous les abordons. Pourquoi Telegram? Nous avons choisi Telegram parce que Telegram nous offre plus de possibilités que WhatsApp. Il y a par exemple les fichiers. Nous partageons beaucoup de fichiers. Ça peut être des images, des vidéos. WhatsApp est limité. WhatsApp limite, disons, les fichiers pour les partages. Il y a un nombre il y a un poids qu'on ne peut pas dépasser, ce qui n'est pas le cas de Telegram où on peut envoyer jusqu'à 2 gigas de fichiers. Et ce qui nous avantage, et aussi, par exemple, les discussions, on peut suivre les discussions, on peut organiser si parfois on ne s'entend pas sur certains sujets, on essaie d'organiser un sondage pour essayer de voir un peu comment ça se passe. Il y a bien d'autres points qu'on aborde donc sur Telegram ensemble dans le groupe. Et maintenant, pour les communications, nous communiquons essentiellement avant l'émission et après l'émission. L'émission est bimédia. On la veut bimédia, donc télévision, réseaux sociaux. Et pour communiquer sur les réseaux sociaux, nous avons opté pour les visuels. Et comme on peut le voir, par exemple, là, on a des visuels de sujets qu'on aborde à l'émission. Donc, on informe ceux que nous avons appelés nos amis du net à travers ces visuels-là. On partage ces visuels sur les réseaux sociaux. Nous avons, par exemple, là, une campagne qui a été menée par des internautes burkinabés à gauche pour sensibiliser sur le port du casque, parce qu'ici, il y a beaucoup de personnes qui circulent la moto, ou encore une brigade de lutte contre la cybercriminalité qui existe ici. Le geek qui a parlé, par exemple, là, de sauvegarde des données. On va aller au numéro 3 et essentiellement, donc, nous abordons ces questions via WhatsApp. Nous avons une communauté sur WhatsApp avec laquelle nous communiquons donc sur les informations que nous allons diffuser, qui seront abordées, les sujets qui seront abordés à l'émission. Et généralement, on partage ces informations. Nous avons des listes de diffusion sur WhatsApp. Il faut dire que nous avons un public cible assez jeune. Et généralement, on diffère à cette émission, au numéro de cette semaine, rendez-vous vendredi à telle heure sur BF1. Généralement, c'est ces informations que nous partageons via WhatsApp avec les listes de diffusion, mais aussi nous mettons ces informations en statut WhatsApp pour que aussi ceux qui puissent être informés, ceux qui regardent plus les statuts puissent être informés via ce canal de diffusion. Aminette sur WhatsApp, le prochain. Ici, nous avons au Burkina, nous faisons face à une insécurité malheureusement grandissante et nous sommes dans une approche pour l'émission surtout inclusive et participative. On veut inclure souvent les contenus sont créés par les socionautes. Et là, par exemple, nous avons demandé aux internautes, à nos amis du net, de partager après plusieurs attaques et tout. On a des populations qui sont assez affectées par certaines situations données. Et on a proposé de faire des vidéos, de nous envoyer des vidéos en soutien aux forces de défense et de sécurité et aux populations touchées par l'insécurité qui, malheureusement, parfois, peuvent avoir l'impression que ils sont délaissés ou bien on ne pense pas à eux parce que malheureusement, certaines zones sont plus touchées, certaines zones du Burkina sont plus touchées et nous avons actuellement, nous avons beaucoup de personnes qu'on a appelées déplacés internes, plus d'1 million selon les chiffres. Et ici, c'était dans une approche, comme on l'a écrit, donc inclusive et participative pour pouvoir montrer que, voilà, on suit l'actualité, on sait que ces personnes qui sont sur les réseaux sociaux, qui suivent ce qui se passe sur les réseaux sociaux, sachent qu'il y a des personnes, on vit une situation difficile, mais il y a une résilience à avoir. Et donc, généralement, sur WhatsApp, on informe, comme je l'ai dit sur l'émission, on partage donc des informations. Prochain. Ici, généralement, à l'émission, à chaque numéro, on donne le numéro WhatsApp qui se trouve en bas et on essaie d'expliquer. Nos amis du net, puisqu'on aborde certains sujets à l'émission, ils peuvent ne pas avoir compris certains numéros qu'on a abordés, ou bien certains sujets qu'on a abordés à l'émission. Donc, ils peuvent nous contacter sur WhatsApp pour avoir des explications sur un point qu'ils n'ont pas compris ou bien avoir des précisions sur des points qu'ils n'ont pas compris. Ça peut être, par exemple, si on a abordé une question sur comment se former en ligne et qu'ils n'ont pas bien compris ou voudraient mieux comprendre, par exemple, on donne le numéro WhatsApp, ils nous contactent, ils posent leurs questions et on essaie de leur expliquer. Le prochain, c'est sur une initiative, là on va parler de Covid. Malheureusement, depuis 2020, nous sommes tous touchés par cette pandémie. Ici, nous avions essayé au tout début parce que malheureusement, il y avait beaucoup d'informations qui circulaient, les gens n'avaient pas assez d'informations, c'était nouveau, et surtout au Burkina Faso. Et nous nous sommes dit, nous allons donner l'occasion, avec surtout les informations, malheureusement, les fausses informations qui circulent sur WhatsApp. Et donc, nous nous sommes dit, pourquoi ne pas créer un cadre et donner la parole à un spécialiste qui va répondre aux questions des amis du net. Et donc, nous avons fait appel, à l'époque, c'était le coordonnateur national de la réponse au Covid-19 au Burkina. Nous lui avons fait appel pour répondre aux questions des socionautes. Et donc, ils avaient la possibilité de poser leurs questions via WhatsApp ou via notamment Facebook, qui est le réseau social le plus utilisé au Burkina. Et donc, ils posaient leurs questions et comme on peut le voir à droite, nous avons organisé un Facebook Live durant lequel ils pouvaient partager, ils pouvaient poser directement leurs questions ou ils pouvaient voir les réponses du spécialiste. Et nous avons associé un numéro WhatsApp. Et donc, ceux qui voulaient après répondre ou bien réagir pouvaient revenir sur WhatsApp ou directement poser leurs questions ou bien apporter leurs précisions et autres. Je vais, pour le prochain, présenter une vidéo. Il s'agit d'une initiative citoyenne que nous avons montrée à l'émission. Un jeune burkinabé qui avait justement au moment où on faisait, il y a beaucoup d'informations, il y avait beaucoup d'informations qui circulaient et on n'avait pas, les gens ne savaient pas où aller. Il a créé un chatbot qu'il a appelé Coco pour informer sur le COVID-19. La vidéo. Il s'agit d'une vidéo. Le précédent. Oui. C'est une vidéo.
Qu'est-ce qui a motivé le choix d'un assistant virtuel sur le COVID-19 sur WhatsApp?
Bon, il faut dire que l'épidémie de coronavirus au Burkina, quand il est arrivé, tout de suite, on a remarqué une montée des fake news, des fausses informations.
Des fausses informations.
Et en plus de ces fausses informations, le citoyen n'avait pas un lieu statique où il pourrait accéder à tout moment aux informations sur le coronavirus, que ce soit pour le Burkina ou même sur la maladie de manière générale. Donc, face à ce constat-là, j'ai donc configuré le chatbot Poco et avec l'aide d'amis étudiants, nous avons comparé nos différentes sources et nous l'avons rempli de ces informations-là.
Quelles sont ces sources, justement?
Ces sources sont principalement l'OMS et la cellule mise en place par le gouvernement et même les informations gouvernementales.
OK. Et le mode de fonctionnement, comment fonctionne Poco?
Poco fonctionne de manière très simple. Il suffit d'enregistrer le numéro Poco sur votre compte WhatsApp ou alors vous pouvez accéder à Poco avec le lien WhatsApp. Et lorsque vous rentrez, vous envoyez simplement un message, n'importe quel message. Et automatiquement, vous avez un message d'accueil qui vient avec différents numéros. Oui, exactement. Avec différents numéros. Ça va même donc des mesures gouvernementales au numéro d'urgence, l'origine de la maladie et même la situation du coronavirus au Burkina. Donc, vous choisissez votre numéro et automatiquement, vous avez la réponse qui correspond à votre numéro.
Y a-t-il possibilité de poser des questions en dehors de celles proposées par Poco?
Oui, il y a cette possibilité-là.
OK.
Face à certaines personnes qui insistaient, nous avons inséré différentes réponses. Donc, chaque fois que quelqu'un pose une question et qu'il y a des mots-clés, par exemple vaccin, symptômes, médicaments, nous avons une réponse prédéfinie que la personne reçoit.
Okay. Et des difficultés, vous avez rencontré?
Des difficultés, oui, notamment ceux qui appellent, parce qu'ils nous prennent pour un centre d'appel, ce qui n'est pas le cas. Et il y a certains également qui veulent consulter. Ils ne sont pas des médecins, donc il y a surtout ces difficultés-là. L'autre difficulté, c'est également avoir les informations. Parce que ce qu'il y a, c'est qu'on met nos informations à jour en fonction des communiqués journaliers. Donc, ça serait bien s'il y avait la possibilité pour nous d'avoir les informations en temps réel sur l'état d'avancée de la maladie au Burkina, histoire qu'à n'importe quelle heure, les gens puissent contacter. Parce que c'est un système qui fonctionne 24 heures sur 24. Et les gens sont vraiment repliés sur ça pour s'informer.
Voilà. C'était donc une initiative citoyenne, comme je l'avais expliqué. Je vais terminer avec cet autre point. Là, c'est sur le fact-checking. Nous avons au Burkina une plateforme qui réunit des journalistes faso-tchèques, appelés faso-tchèques, qui s'est donné pour ambition, qui s'est donné pour objectif de faire des écrits uniquement sur le fact-checking. Faso-tchèque est dans une initiative, j'ai eu à travailler avec l'équipe qui, comme on peut le voir juste en bas, a un numéro WhatsApp, a installé un numéro WhatsApp à travers lequel les internautes pourraient éventuellement, parce que malheureusement, ici, les réseaux sociaux, surtout au-delà des réseaux sociaux, on a WhatsApp qui est beaucoup utilisé et qui occupe un rôle important et où les fausses informations circulent assez vite et sont beaucoup propagées. Et donc, ici, l'objectif pour Faso-Tchèque était de donner un numéro via lequel les internautes peuvent les contacter s'ils ont une information qu'ils veulent vérifier ou bien s'ils voudraient avoir vérifier l'authenticité d'une image, d'une vidéo, ou bien ils voudraient suggérer des sujets, ils ont vu des informations et ils voudraient suggérer ces informations pour qu'on puisse vérifier pour eux. Et donc, ils ont la possibilité de contacter Faso-Tchèque via WhatsApp Et moi, je participe actuellement avec, toujours dans le cadre justement des fausses informations, on a constaté qu'il y a de plus en plus d'internautes qui se déportent sur Telegram. Telegram qui crée des chaînes de diffusion. Et comme ici, l'actualité est dominée par les informations sur l'insécurité, il y a tout type d'informations qui circulent et beaucoup d'informations qui ne sont pas vérifiées. Et ces médias, on va travailler avec ces médias dans le cadre d'un projet appelé Desinfox Afrique, à ce que ces médias puissent suivre ces diffusions d'informations-là, être sur ces canaux-là pour participer à apporter les bonnes informations et à contrecarrer un tant soit peu la diffusion de ces fausses informations. Voilà, j'ai fini et je vais sans doute attendre les discussions. Merci.
Yep, thanks so much, Emily. That's fascinating. And I see there is a question in there for you in the Q&A, but I think we'll come back to it after the presentations. So next up, we're going to hear about South Africa's Scroller, and we have a joint presentation with Mungo and Tabiso.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's fantastic to be here. My name's Mungo Sogod. I'm the CEO and founder, one of the founders of Scroller.Africa. We're based in South Africa at the moment, but we have plans to move to West Africa and East Africa next. We are mobile only. We're built from the ground up for mobile. I'm going to be talking to you about the origins of our editorial mission and our audience and our team, and then our very particular experiences with messaging apps in South Africa and how they've helped us with our distribution. And then I'm going to pass the baton to my colleague Tabiso Sekula Down, who's in Limpopo, who's an expert on distribution, and for her to give her views on how messaging apps can help digital platforms in this very challenging area that we're in. So we're built from the ground up for mobile, and our editorial mission is to bring popular news which doesn't distort and doesn't patronize to as broad an audience as possible. And the market that we're operating in has, it actually caters very well for wealthier readers, and we're particularly interested in readers who don't have much money, can't afford data, and who have quite low quality mobile phones which don't have fancy screens and allow them to enjoy all the glories that are on offer from fancier phones. So everything that we do, from the selection of our stories, the way we present them, to how we display them, we think of a mobile phone. And shortly after launching last year, we decided to accelerate our plans to publish bilingually. So we are in Zulu and English. So everything, about 95% of what we produce is in both languages. And we have a full-time translation team, and we are bringing on full-time Zulu reporters whose work we will also then translate into English. The team we're an entirely post-COVID company, so the team is entirely online. Our news editor, distribution manager, Tabiso, and our news editor, Kamogelo in Limpopo. We've got people, editor-at-large and reporters with Everson Luhanga, who's our editor-at-large, and our other reporters are in Johannesburg, and we've got a team in KwaZulu and in the Eastern Cape. My co-founder, Zukile Majova, who runs the Zulu team, is based in the Eastern Cape. But our coverage is rooted in communities. We have a very kind of strong editorial team who work with reporters from across the country. But in addition to being very focused on South Africa, we're also passionate about bringing news from the rest of the continent to a South African audience, which we think there's a huge desire for. And also the rest of the world. So we cover American politics, we cover big stories in Europe, big stories in China, always looking to present it for an excited local audience. In terms of who we're, the profile of our audience, and this kind of brings me on to our kind of experience with messaging platforms. You know, obviously our main target is people who don't have much, who you know, have relatively few resources, who don't have fancy phones. But we're passionate about making every article something which is of interest and of either, you know, informative or joyful for as broad a possible audience as possible. So we don't want to. We're always looking to add on to our audiences and not to limit. And you know, one of the challenges of the South African market in particular is that it's still highly segmented, and that's partly a hangover from the obvious legacies of the country's recent past. But advertisers in particular see the market very much through, you know, often through kind of segregated prisms, which we think are actually quite restrictive. So we're very, very keen to break those boundaries, and mobile phones allow one to break those boundaries. They allow one to get to a much broader range of audience. Most of our readers are in the 25 to 35 market at the moment, about 40%, and you know, and we expect that to remain the case. Now, in terms of the experience we've had over our, you know, in our first 18 months, is, you know, in South Africa, data costs are particularly expensive. They're some of the worst on the continent. I mean, we all know that sub-Saharan Africa has the world's most expensive data. I mean, and so there's some kind of crazy rates for what it costs. I mean, I think Equatorial Guinea is about $35 a gig. South Africa is bad. It's not the worst, but it's pretty bad. And you know, people have spent a huge amount of their income on data. So we found very, very early on that one of the impediments to distribution is data costs. People just don't want to spend time on their phone and guzzle valuable data. So we early on last year arranged to post to get 2 channels on MTN's Ayoba platform. And Ayoba, if you haven't come across it, is a messaging platform which MTN run across the continent. I mean, it's particularly, they've started, I think, particularly in South Africa, and I know it's operating in Ghana. And what it is, it's a free messaging app. It's a rival to WhatsApp, but it has a kind of a content bubble around it, and it's a free data bubble. So everything, once you're on that app, everything is free. So it was a wonderful opportunity for us to early on get a distribution channel. And what they do is we send our stories to them the old-fashioned way by email, and then they put it through their CMS, which makes it, which strips it to a very particular format, which they put on their platform. And it was a really great way for us to launch. So we run that in parallel with our main site, and then later on this year we struck a similar arrangement with a fascinating South African messaging app called Moya.app, which is again another rival to the big gorillas in this market, the Telegrams and the WhatsApps. And it's actually the most popular app on the Android, on the Google Play Store, Moya. And they also have it's a free messaging app, but it has a free content bubble around it. Which has a range of things, including news, and a lot of there's several South African great South African news publications which are on there, and we're very, very pleased to be on there too. And again, we run our Zulu and our English on Moya as well, and they automate the process, so they automatically take our content and they put it into a package which is very lean. And these experiences with Moya and with Ayoba have encouraged us to kind of accelerate our plans to produce a dedicated platform and app which is kind of deliberately low data, and we've launched a pilot version of what we call Scroller Data Lite, and we've recently last month won the Google GNI award, which has contributed funding to develop our Data Lite site, which we're doing at the moment, and we're about to kind of shift our emphasis to it. And it's kind of learning again from this experience that data costs are just such a kind of massive such a massive barrier to the most underserved part of the market, which is the market that we're particularly passionate about serving. So I'm going to pass. I'm now going to pass on to Biso, who has, apart from her work for Scroller, she's one of the experts in South Africa on how messaging platforms in general can be used as part of a broader distribution strategy.
Thanks, Bango. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Jackie. I apologize for my voice. I hope everybody can hear me all right. My name is Thabiso Sukula. I am on distribution for Scroller, and I'm a journalist, so content distribution is quite close to my heart. It's a different feeling when you watch something that lived in your head now come out, and then you put it down you write it down, and then you watch it sprout, and you watch other people receive it, and it just grows and grows. I think that's just something that all journalists really love to see, and other writers as well, bloggers, to see something that was once your own that we're not sure of, now live and thrive out there. And messaging platforms, absolutely. I think people inherently want to share things that they find out in the easiest way possible. And because we are all so linked to our mobile phones, messaging apps are always first. When something happens, something that grabs your attention, you want to share it also with your own people. And the first place you go to where you have all your people is your messaging app, because that's your closest circle. So it does have that big benefit of being there, because if something is really good, people will share it immediately to their closest circles. But also, like all my other fellow speakers have also mentioned, it's got its risks and there's misinformation. So in this day and age, it's such a beautiful thing to know that there are journalists out there who are making sure that the content that is shared is quite factual. But I think because everybody's focused already on the pluses of having social media and messaging platforms as part of your distribution channel, I think one of the things that I struggled with at first was, how do you make your stuff distribute better? How do you make sure that people see your content? And it's not some magical solution that comes out there. It's a lot of practice, error, and also listening to feedback from the people that you're serving. And I just want to share some practical ways that you can start making sure that your content does get seen. If you had a little bit of reach, it can grow your reach just a bit more. So it's quite helpful. And it's been helpful for us at Scroller especially. So that's why I want to share it with you guys. For those who are not sure, how do you start making sure that people see this content? You have this amazing content, but people are not seeing it. I think planning is the biggest, most underrated hero of content. We are in the media industry. A lot of our coverage is reactive because there's breaking news, and we all know breaking news will always do better than things that were planned because of its importance and also the subject. But there's a whole calendar in the year that you can plan for certain things. There's Heritage Day coming now. You could plan something so fantastic. I think content does well, especially when it links to people, when it's super helpful, whether you solve people's problems or you tell people something really interesting that they didn't know. So it has to start with that. The idea, it cannot just be distributing things for the sake of it. If you really want great reach and for people to remember your brand, it has to be really interesting, or you have to solve people's problems. And I know people always say you have to plan, but nobody ever tells you what goes into the planning for distribution of your content. So for my section, I want to just share a little bit these 5-6 points that can help on that journey. So the first thing that you do is look at your calendar and you see, okay, these are the things that are very important for our calendar. Maybe we are a publication about culture. Heritage Day would be big on that list. So you focus on that. And then you think, okay, we want to do this really amazing coverage on Heritage Day. We want to focus the amazing cultures in South Africa. We want to do it in videos. We want to do it in song. We want to get famous musicians who are going to come do lives, things like that. It doesn't just happen. You have to plan it first. Otherwise, it's going to fail. You're going to put money through it, and it's not going to give you the desired outcome. So when you plan, you've done your calendar, and then you look at, okay, what are the potential communities that I could align my content with. How do I make sure that I find people who will find the most relevance and the most importance in the content that I'm sending out? And this could be groups on Facebook, it could be groups on WhatsApp that you've curated yourself or that other people have curated. You can also go as far as partnering with pages that deal with content that's similar to yours. And then after you identify the communities that you're going to distribute to who are going to find your content relevant, you then think, okay, what am I trying to solve? I have this amazing idea, but what does it solve? Is it really relevant to people, or people going to just see it and then move right along from it? If you can't solve their problem, the biggest way to get people to notice you, the biggest Google searches are always people wanting to DIY, solve the problems that they have. If you can't solve the problems that they have, the least you can do is tell them something really interesting, something that will stay with them even after they've read the article, something that will make them want to share with other people. And then think of potential partners. Today you have influencers, you have celebrities, you have experts, you have key opinion leaders. Think, okay, I am doing something around Heritage Day, and I know that in Limpopo, which is the province that I am from, there are these creators who are doing really amazing things around culture and around cultural pride. And one thing we can do, since we're celebrating Heritage Day, is go to one of these guys' homes and see where they're from, see their heritage, speak to their moms, find out what they eat. That's really interesting because people want to know about people. They don't just want to be fed content, but they want to know, okay, how do other people live? What's a day like in Limpopo? I live in the villages. I moved from the city to go to the villages in Limpopo. Why would somebody do that? So find things that are really interesting about your angle that you're pushing out to people. And then think about the platforms and platform strategy, which is really important, because if you get it wrong, it might fail after you've put in so much effort into making sure that your content stands out. You don't have to jump on every single platform. I know that, they always say the train's going to leave you behind, but sometimes if you get mixed up in too much too soon, you might find that you can't sustain the content on those apps, on those platforms, or you might find that the messages are too confusing. If somebody follows you on Twitter and they follow you on Facebook and on Instagram, you're duplicating messages. So they are really more just annoyed with your brand than anything else. So if you're going to go on a platform, make sure you have a strategy for that platform. Don't just jump on it. Instagram, we all know it's fancy. Messaging apps, quick, punchy, funny, breaking news, things that people find interesting. So if you want to share it for WhatsApp, make sure that it's got that punch. Don't make people read long statements on WhatsApp. They're not interested in chain messages. So the platform strategy, and also it doesn't have to be something so extensive for the guys who are still small blogging. It can be something as small as the way you change your captions for different markets. You know that your WhatsApp guys want it punchy and quick, you give them that. You know that the guys on LinkedIn want a bit more of an explanation. They want to know the history behind this area that you're covering. You know that on Facebook, you have to give them pictures, maybe videos, and also the caption has to speak to that. So it's just a matter of thinking about those things. It doesn't have to be, okay, I'm going to have videos for TikTok. I'm going to have reels on Insta. You don't have to do everything, but you can have the same videos on all the platforms. Just make sure the way you deliver it is different and it's fresh. Make sure that if you're focusing on, let's say, cultures of Limpopo on Instagram because it looks really good in pictures, make sure that on Facebook you focus on, let's say, music in Limpopo. That's something different, so that if I am on both your Instagram and on your Facebook or on your WhatsApp, I find different aspects to love about your content, and it's not just repetition of the same things as you go. And no one, and I mean no one, ever has it figured out. There's no such thing as an expert. We all get somewhere because we listen to feedback. Feedback is a gift. Accept it from your audiences and be humble. If people are giving you feedback, that is such a great opportunity to know what is working, how do I improve it? And literally that is the only way people ever grow. That's the only way brands ever grow. That's the only way you know that my Facebook is working, my Instagram is working, my WhatsApp messaging group is working or it's not working. You listen to the feedback and you don't just think that you are the expert, so you know better about what should be on this platform and how it should be. Always listen and tweak as you go and change as you go. Your brand will also evolve as you go along. Like Mango said, we are still a very, very young brand and we are still learning. Every single day is an opportunity to learn, but we don't limit ourselves, whether on audience or on content. We are for the people and we are for community. So we try and be in those communities in as much or as little as we can, but it's all done with a purpose. We're not just trying to duplicate our messaging out there so that people see us, but we are actually trying to land with people, let our messaging relate with people, let people understand what we're saying and let it resonate with them and let them share it for us. If you are useful and if you are relevant and if you help people solve their problems, they'll definitely do the distribution for you. At the heart of it all, good content is its own best distribution strategy. And that's, I think, those few steps have been what have helped us stay abreast of what we're doing, take the feedback in, take it slowly, know your platforms, and always make sure that your distribution strategy is well thought of. You're not just distributing your content just so people can see it, because it can get annoying very quickly. And just on that, also, not everything works. So always be mindful of that. I think that's...
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tamisa. Do you, they're really useful lessons. If there's something you have that you can share, you can pop in the chat box. I don't know if you have.
Absolutely, I'll do that.
That would be wonderful. They're really useful.
I'll do that. Thanks, Jackie.
Okay. All right, so moving straight on now to Sipho, who's going to tell us about The Continent, which is a fascinating new Africa-wide publication. Go.
Thank you, Jackie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So yes, I'm the editorial director at The Continent. Continent is a weekly newspaper, and it's in PDF format and designed to be read on smartphones. And we make sure the file is quite small, so it's 5 megabytes. And our focus is on, editorially, the focus is on quality African journalism for an African audience in a format that people actually want to read. Each edition is give or take 30 pages, and we don't put more than 300 words on a page, so you don't want to exhaust people. We run in seasons, we decided to call them, to steal from Netflix, of 10 editions per season, and then we take a break in between for our own health, and also to strategize, listen to our audience, learn, and decide what we want to do going forward. In the 18 months since we started, we've published 59 editions, we've got 15,000 subscribers. Now that start 18 months ago was exactly when COVID rocked up and started accelerating the destruction of the media industry. And when we created it, we were really worried about this moment, because less journalism means less accountability, right? It means leaders can do whatever they want and companies can destroy communities. And you get, I don't know, you see in the United States what happened when you get news deserts and the fallout from that. In the beginning, we were self-funded. We then got big donors, and we've recently started getting commercial advertisers. Each one of our weekly newspapers, the edition is distributed on WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, and if you're old school, on email. The encryption on each one of those platforms means that nobody can intercept it, nobody can stop it, which is really important when we're dealing with a few countries where the people in charge wouldn't like people to read good journalism. And I think Mungo mentioned this earlier, the cost of data on the content is really high, which is why we have small file size, but also you have a lot of cheap smartphones, you have decreasing data costs. So there's a huge opportunity for this kind of media. And on the content, our media tend to be quite insular, or they'll report on a country or a region. the newsrooms that covered the whole continent tend to be based in a European capital or in America or China. So you've got this underserved market of 1 billion people, let's say, right, or 1.3 billion people, and a huge opportunity for journalism. We went with a PDF because we're not fans of most news websites because it just doesn't work. That curation aspect of journalism has failed on news websites by and large. And by sticking to stories that are either 300 words, 600 or 900, we make sure that people actually want to read it, right? Because it's in a length that we read instead of a 2,000 word article. By having distribution on these platforms, on Signal or WhatsApp, we're creating this community of people who are actually invested in our work, right? So if you want to sign up to the continent, you message a number on whatever platform you're using, and then a real life human being sees that message. They add you to our distribution list, and then they message you, and people talk to them. And as a bonus, you get a free website on a Saturday. Our distribution editor, Kerry, will often talk in news meetings about interactions with our audience, like what people say to us and what people kind of feedback they give. Recently, they even did IT help for someone. So someone had got an edition of The Continent and it didn't download onto their smartphone because their smartphone is full. So the distribution team needed to go off and do IT research and work out how the smartphone work, and then talk this reader through how to make space and how to get an edition on their phone. And for us, this is that one-to-one relationship has built this really incredible community of people, right? So we tap into that community. I think, like Tabiso said, where you learn from your community. So last month, we asked readers what they thought about us taking advertising from a major bank. And we got really nuanced, informed thoughts from readers and sort of the go-ahead to go with funding. We get feedback from readers just on our journalism. This season, we created a letters page because the feedback was so good. And people give us really good ideas because it's that one-on-one relationship. So for instance, now we're on Telegram because people said, you need to be there. We want to see you there. But most importantly, for us, readers are the distribution network, right? That community that you build. So every time we create an edition, we ask people to share it. We say judiciously. And it's one of these things, I mean, we all have the experience where disinformation does really well because it's someone you know sending it to you. So they've given it a stamp of approval and you go, oh, cool, you open it and then it tells you should inject ivermectin into yourself, right? So if you turn that on its head and people are instead sharing good journalism, all of those people sharing it are effectively endorsing it, which is really, really powerful. And we've got readers in 105 or subscribers in 105 different countries who are sharing it. And we did a survey at the end of last year of this audience, and a third of people just receive it and don't share it. A third share it a couple of times. And then we have these, our favorite people, the super sharers, we need to find a better word for that, who share it 9 or 10 times and they put it into group WhatsApps. And from extrapolating from that, we think we have an audience of over 100,000 people every single week. And what you're doing there is tapping into the viral nature of chat platforms. But of course, the big caveat to all of this is in the beginning, it's a free product, right? And in the beginning, this was thanks to funders, right? Our core newsroom is 9 people. We've worked with over 200 different journalists, reporters, cartoonists, writers, all sorts of people. And that's because after we self-funded in the beginning, big funders came along and said, we'd like to support you. We'd like to support this vision. But the flip side of that is, and this is one of the problems with relying on encrypted chat platforms, you don't get analytics. So I think one of the questions in the Q&A was about that, where WhatsApp won't tell you where a PDF ends up. They won't tell you where your story ends up. So funders will come to us because, you know, in the age of internet, in the age of Facebook and metrics and metrics and metrics, they'll say, how many readers do you reach? How many people do you reach? We've stopped, it seems, caring about the quality of readers, which means a lot of our work is sort of preaching funding journalism for the sake of journalism. So we'll go to funders and say, we have 15,000 subscribers, but that's the only metric that we know. You need to invest in quality. Now that's working. So we have funders, we're getting more funders. And we also, because of that one-on-one relationship with readers will say, have you thought about this funder? Or I work for a big company and they'd be interested in taking out advertising. So we're now moving on to a phase where we can actually get advertising. And all of this is thanks to these chat platforms, which allow you to build relationships. But at the end of it, because we're journalists, like the thing that underpins this is our skill, right? And believing in our skill again. So if you're a journalist, you're really good at going and getting massive amount of information about something, curating it, and then giving it to people in a format that they want to consume. And I think we forgot that in the sort of internet, Facebook, Twitter era, where we just played on other people's platforms on their own terms. And what we did differently on these platforms with the content is focus on the PDF. So it is a product, right? And that product can be shared on any platform. It isn't formatted for any of those platforms. We're formatting it. So we decide what goes in it, how big it is. We decide what advertising goes in it. And if there is advertising, we take the revenue, not a third party. And it means we can format it to be really beautiful and be really readable. And so far, readers have agreed with us. That's why we have people in 105 different countries at the moment subscribing to us. So I think the lesson for us has been trust yourself, trust in journalism, and quality content will win on through. If you want to be a subscriber, find us on Twitter, because we don't have a website, and there are details on how you can get your copy of the content. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Sipo, just very quickly, what's the age roughly of your audience?
So everything.
Right.
I mean, we have people who basically don't know how to use smartphones because they're older, and then all the way across the spectrum, which is really cool. It's that thing of everyone wants good journalism.
Yeah, okay, great. All right, so we're kind of like in the last third of the session, and we have 2 more presentations and a few questions to get through. So I'll go straight on to Mahida. And if you could try and make sure you keep it to 5 to 7 minutes, please, maximum.
I'll try to make sure to finish as soon as possible. Okay.
Are you speaking in English?
Yes, yes.
Okay. There you are. Hi.
Okay. So are you seeing the slideshow I'm showing?
No.
Okay, let me share once.
Mahida, then why don't we get Seppo to share it?
Oh, can you share it?
Seppo can share it, and you can just tell him when to flick the slide.
Okay, should I just continue?
Yep, there you go, it's up.
Okay, so thank you. This is Mahida representing by Ethiopia, which is one of the biggest news channel in Ethiopia, which is present in Telegram. So before continuing to the session, I would like to start the session by thanking the organizer for giving us such an opportunity to show what we're doing, and it enables us to learn and interact with experienced professionals within our content. So Ethiopia uses Telegram as its main social media platform to disseminate news and information, and do many more philanthropic action in our country. So Telegram is proprietary cloud-based instant messaging system with free and open source cross-platform clients. The service also provides in-the-to-in encrypted video calling, file sharing, and several other features. Telegram enables its users to choose what groups or channels to choose to engage in, and limits the user's exposure to such content. So it decreases the dissemination of news, false news and information, unlike other social media platforms like Facebook, which is used mainly as the main social media platform in our country. Thus, we chose Telegram as our main social media platform to use it as a news media. So Telegram in Ethiopia, it has not been long since the Telegram application was widely used in Ethiopia. Primarily, this is preferred because of low cost, low internet connection, and better access to customers. This app has made a significant contribution to the elimination of speech on other social media, especially since it became popular in Ethiopia. Tikva Ethiopia is a Telegram-based digital news platform. It has been 4 years since Tikva was established and now has more than 1.2 million members. Aside from the main Tikva page, we have subsidiary pages like Tikva Magazine, which focuses more on giving information on tourism and different other cultural news, with comprising 250,000 members. Tikva Sports, giving the national and international news on sports with 140,000 members. Tikva University, which focus mainly on university news and comprising 900,000 members, and Tikva Aid, which we use to organize charity and aid movements. So the activities that Tikva Ethiopia is engaged in, and our major activities is distributing regular news on the main page. We work on reporting security problems in various parts of the country. We disseminate public inquiries in various areas, raising social development issues. So, as I said earlier, the other subsidiary channels or do those information according to their scope of news. So, where do we get the information that we disseminate to the public? Our major source of information is our millions of members found across the country, and these members continuously send their local information to our different addresses, and we cross-check by contacting the local government and other residents in the local area to ensure that the information is reliable. And also we receive the information from the local government itself. We receive information from the organization structures. So also organization directly send the information that they want to show the public to our platform, and they send that to us. So our main task as the major news outlet in our country on the social media is ensuring that the information is kept keep its integrity as much as possible, and we should examine and verify every piece of information to the best of our ability. And in particular, we evaluate in depth whether or not the information is true, its impact, and if it is causing problems in the community as we check. So through the 4 years that we've been running this channel, it's not without challenges that we've been doing this. Well, okay, some of the challenges that we faced over the years are the temptation by various entities to spread false information using our name, because Tikva is known as the main social media news platform and is known for its integrity. So it laid a great burden for us to ensure that our brand name is not used in negative light as much as possible. And there are members of the government and of course the opposition who are pressuring us to do partisan work using our public acceptance as leverage. And another major problems that we faced along these years are the internet interaction that occur because of the instability in our country. That really hinders our job because it is mainly a social media job. And also mentioned earlier from another person giving this speech, the high cost of internet in our country is also one of the challenges that we face as we do this. So what do we contribute as a Tikva to our community? The major job is providing timely and reliable information, news, and ideas. it is used to expose false information. For example, when information is disseminated by the government or opposition forces or any other body, our members verify the truth that is really happening on the ground and inform other members. It allows people to get enough news information without having to wait for the news hour, or it doesn't have to be really, expect the news from TV like the old times, since now people are more prone to use our phone to get any information. And it provides an opportunity to gain news of what's happening from every side of the story, thus giving way for unbiased information. And another, since one of our purposes in doing this is also giving back to the community, we organize different campaigns, doing this together with the different the government offices, and also in NGOs. So one of the very massive nationwide campaign we did was hate speech movement, mainly focused from the university, mainly focused on universities across the country. And with this campaign, we worked on raising awareness about information and negative content found very, very much found in high amount in our social media platform, affecting the real problems that are found on the ground. Thus, by raising these issues onto the surface, we aim to make social media platforms a better place for communication and sharing ideas. And the other event is what we did together with the Minister of Peace, the Have an Idea event. It was a project there, the collaboration with the Minister of Peace, to bring our traditional method of problem solving cultures found in different parts of countries through the participation of selected users. And aside from those campaigns, we actively participate in charity workers. It could be organized by our own team, or you could participate in those organized by organizational or non-organizational bodies. So what is a social media for journalists? Many journalists in our country are turning their attention to the social media these days, since many of the news outlets available are mostly influenced by the state. The freedom social media brings to the people are being sought very actively to do their work. And people in the community or the audience are also giving more attention to the social media platforms, because the people are needing a more reliable information than what is really distributed in our official medias. However, it's not without problems that we use the social media for distributing the events or news. Imprisonment for their social media activities because of a disagreement with the government, unstable network to gain information from the local residents in providing it are some of the problems we have been facing. So TICVA members, or as we like to call them, families, grew into a very large amount of members in a short period of time because of its fast-free, impartial distribution of information and its impartiality. Thank you. This is all our links for access to our Telegram channel and our website. If you have any question, I can accept that. Hello.
Okay, thanks so much, Mahida. We're kind of running out of time, so, and I know that Mungo, you have to leave on the hour sharp. So there was one question that I wanted to put to you before you go, and it was just that somebody, Rona Maya, had asked, can you share the motivations behind the move to West and South Africa? That's for Mungo and Thabiso. We'll come back, Mahida, to if we have time for questions at the end.
Yeah, so just to understand the question right, so why we've launched in South Africa, and then what's motivating our plans to go west and then east. Yeah, so no, it's a very good question. I mean, we were going to launch in Ghana, but we then just because of the way the team evolved, the founding team, we decided to start in South Africa, and essentially the business model involves us, getting our readership and our revenue established in South Africa, and then we'll go to Nigeria, and then finally to East Africa. Our editorial kind of the editorial guru of the company is Philip Fanika, who actually also works with Richard's publication, contributes to Premium Times, and he's a Nigeria expert. And I mean, we're passionate about West Africa, but just because of the skills of the founding team, we thought it was sensible to start in South Africa, and then essentially do West Africa and then East Africa. And I think the reason for the incremental growth is just because if you try and do it too quickly, the risks are obvious. But I mean, we're really keen to establish partnerships with other publications, and we're already doing so across the continent so that we can accelerate our coverage across the continent. But we I think as some of the other panelists have discussed, it can be, one's got to be very, very careful not to try and spread oneself too thin too quickly.
Okay, great. Thanks very much for that. So, and if you have to duck out, because we may run over a little bit.
Okay.
So I beg the indulgence of the audience, if you don't mind.
I'll try and hold on as long as I can. Thank you so much.
Okay. We've had such a fabulous group of innovators and journalists to hear from, and we have one left, and that's Sinatu Saka. Is Sinatu there? Yes, hi, and you'll be speaking in French. If you could just keep it to maybe 5 minutes.
Très bien. Vous m'entendez comme il faut? Ok, super.
Yes.
Ok, très bien. Bah, écoutez, bonjour à tous et à toutes. Je suis très, très contente d'être ici pour vous parler un peu, nous, de notre expérience. Alors, du coup, moi, je suis journaliste et chef de projet éditorial chez RFI et France 24. Il faut savoir que depuis de très, très longues années, nos émissions ont l'habitude d'utiliser WhatsApp, en l'occurrence, pour dialoguer avec les auditeurs, pour récupérer des questions, pour entretenir la conversation. Et puis, en 2019, on a décidé de lancer un fil d'actualité dédié à l'Afrique sur WhatsApp. Donc, c'était précisément en avril 2019 qu'on a lancé ça. L'intuition, on va dire, de départ, c'était vraiment de montrer, en tout cas, une Afrique dynamique, une jeunesse entreprenante. Et donc, du coup, on a décidé de lancer ce service-là. Donc, chaque jour, sur votre smartphone, RFI Afrique vous envoie un résumé de l'actualité, une sélection d'articles du site et d'autres contenus pour ne rien manquer de ce qui fait l'actualité du continent. Donc, pour s'abonner, c'était assez simple et c'était entièrement gratuit. Donc, c'était un numéro, il fallait juste envoyer un message à un numéro et puis ensuite, surtout, on était attaché à ça. Pour se désabonner, il fallait simplement envoyer un message stop. C'était une aventure qui était très, très intéressante et on voulait aussi donner la possibilité à des gens qui, à un moment ou à un autre, estimaient qu'on envoyait beaucoup trop d'infos, de pouvoir arrêter l'aventure. Et donc, en avril 2019, on lance ce fil d'infos dédié à l'actualité africaine. Et en fait, concrètement, chaque matin, tous les jours de la semaine et chaque soir, on proposait à nos abonnés des liens, donc comme j'ai dit, vers des articles et des reportages, des chroniques et des émissions de Radio France Internationale. Et en fait, au bout de quelques mois, on s'est retrouvé avec près de 50 000 personnes, donc c'est un chiffre assez important, qui ont fait la démarche de nous suivre dans leur immense majorité sur le continent africain. Donc il y avait beaucoup de personnes, pour vous donner une idée de pays, il y avait beaucoup de personnes en République démocratique du Congo, en Côte d'Ivoire, au Sénégal, au Togo, au Cameroun, au Mali. Et il y avait beaucoup d'entre eux qui, près de 5000, près de 5000 qui étaient très intéressés par le football, parce qu'on a créé après un fil d'infos dédié au foot, un fil où on envoyait notamment des messages spécifiques durant la dernière Coupe d'Afrique des Nations. Donc pour nous, c'était vraiment un lien unique créé avec toutes ces personnes, et chaque jour, on recevait des messages, des dizaines de messages d'abonnés, c'est-à-dire des gens qui nous disaient souvent bonjour, bonne journée, merci, ou bien qui nous envoyaient un emoji pouce en l'air. Et c'était pour nous la première fois, contrairement à beaucoup de, on va dire, de messages un peu négatifs qu'on recevait sur Facebook, par exemple. Sur WhatsApp, c'était vraiment un enthousiasme, c'était vraiment des retours très positifs qu'on recevait. Il y avait beaucoup d'abonnés aussi qui demandaient à avoir des liens pour réécouter nos émissions, parce que évidemment, finalement, c'était une sélection, on faisait une curation de nos émissions sur ce fil en fait WhatsApp. Et les week-ends, on faisait le choix d'envoyer que des magazines, c'est-à-dire pas de l'actualité chaude surtout, mais vraiment que des magazines qui permettent de décrypter l'information, qui permettent de rentrer en profondeur, qui permettent finalement à nos auditeurs de prendre le temps et aussi. Et ce qui était intéressant pour nous, c'est que finalement, ce service que nous, on a pensé pour un peu montrer qu'on pouvait aussi servir une actualité qui était engageante, positive, les utilisateurs finalement l'ont détourné, et du coup, ils demandaient finalement, on faisait que répondre à un besoin, c'est-à-dire que certains demandaient des liens pour écouter nos émissions, d'autres même nous signalaient quand il y avait nos antennes qui ne pouvaient plus capter dans une région un peu isolée. Ils nous disaient, est-ce que vous avez un souci technique? Et en fait, c'était vraiment hyper important pour nous de pouvoir toucher des personnes aussi éloignées. Et d'autres abonnés nous demandaient aussi de vérifier des rumeurs, de confirmer des informations. Et en fait, toutes ces conversations avec nos abonnés nous ont permis de faire des reportages beaucoup plus longs qui étaient diffusés sur nos antennes. Donc, c'était vraiment aussi un moyen pour nous de commencer une histoire, de sentir un début d'histoire. Et voilà, et après de creuser, de demander à nos journalistes de faire des investigations qu'on publiait après sur WhatsApp. Et finalement, on faisait un journalisme qui répondait à un besoin particulier. Et du coup, je ne pourrais pas terminer cette petite présentation sans vous dire que justement, malgré le fait que nos émissions continuent d'utiliser WhatsApp pour dialoguer avec leurs auditeurs, le fil info, en tout cas RFI, a été coupé tout simplement parce que on utilisait un service de messagerie qui s'appelait Messenger People que Facebook a décidé d'arrêter, et du coup le seul moyen pour nous d'envoyer des contenus aujourd'hui, c'était de le faire manuellement, et faire manuellement, c'est un travail énorme. Quand il s'agit d'envoyer à plus de 30 000 personnes, c'est un travail qui est très chronophage, que nous avons décidé de prendre le temps un peu, peut-être qu'on reviendra, mais Messenger People nous permettait vraiment de pouvoir, un temps soit peu, pas automatiser tout ça, parce que c'est nous qui écrivons les messages, c'est des êtres humains qui écrivent des messages, mais de pouvoir en tout cas faciliter l'envoi de ces messages-là. Et donc du coup, là, on est encore en train de réfléchir pour trouver le bon moyen de répondre à ce besoin qui était important, de plus de 30 000 personnes, de pouvoir rester en lien permanent avec nous. Mais c'est vrai que du coup, pour moi, le challenge, l'enjeu, c'est de pouvoir construire des rédactions avec des personnes dédiées pour produire du contenu spécifique pour ces plateformes-là, et surtout de pouvoir trouver aussi des ressources humaines, c'est-à-dire construire dans des salles de rédaction des personnes en capacité d'envoyer, en tout cas pour dépasser cette barrière technique-là, d'envoyer manuellement un type de message à un très très grand nombre d'abonnés. Et pour le coup, aujourd'hui, ça reste encore quelque chose de très très chronophage à faire, et c'est vrai que voilà, pour moi, c'est une vraie barrière en tout cas, mais nous, on en a tiré beaucoup de leçons. Par exemple, ça a énormément stimulé notre rédaction aussi, c'est-à-dire qu'il y a beaucoup de journalistes qui ont commencé à travailler ensemble, il y a beaucoup de journalistes qui ont commencé aussi à réfléchir à des nouveaux projets éditoriaux. Donc, c'était aussi une sorte de laboratoire d'innovation aussi pour nous. Donc, si vous voulez vous lancer dans cette expérience-là, ça peut être très, très intéressant pour permettre à vos journalistes qui sont toujours la tête dans le guidon de pouvoir innover, de pouvoir continuer à s'enrichir aussi et de pouvoir trouver un espace où ils peuvent être créatifs grâce à ces plateformes-là. Et du coup, pour revenir à là où on est aujourd'hui, parce que du coup, le fil info RFI Afrique est en pause, on peut dire ça comme ça. Donc, les émissions continuent d'entretenir des relations. Mais voilà, si je prends un exemple de Archives d'Afrique ou du débat africain, ça va rester finalement les auditeurs qui sont abonnés au débat africain qui vont échanger avec l'équipe du débat africain. Et c'est un usage qui est très, très intéressant aussi parce que de temps en temps, il y a des passerelles entre les émissions. De temps en temps, il y a des messages qu'on décide d'envoyer à ce groupe en fait, d'auditeurs. Et c'est une expérience qui est très, très intéressante, qu'on continue de suivre parce que WhatsApp, finalement, c'est la plateforme où le plus de nos auditeurs, en tout cas, que le plus de nos auditeurs utilisent. Voilà ce que je peux vous dire rapidement. Je ne sais pas s'il y a des questions, mais en tout cas, je suis très, très ravie d'être ici avec vous.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks so much. Now, we're actually already over time, so there's a couple of questions. There's one for Emily and one for Sanatu in the chat box in French. Can I ask you to answer those in chat, please, if you can? And I just thought I might just try and wrap up and then ask all of you just to share a last thought. Share a last thought, maybe for like one minute each. So, I mean, it's a fascinating conversation. And for me, I think, you know, to be outside of Africa and to see the kind of innovation that is going on in the continent is, you know, it's incredible. And it's really, I think you're leading the world. And it seems to be largely because of the circumstances. You know, it's a great way to engage audiences and to get factual information to your audiences and your communities, or to at least be able to fact check information, you know, quickly and get it to where people are, which is on these messaging apps. One of my big kind of questions, I guess, and I'm not sure because you all had quite different views, but which platform is best? Like which messaging app is better? And I think Emily said that there were more options on WhatsApp. There was a question in the chat about, in the Q&A box, about whether the move away from the older versions, the WhatsApp on older phones would have an impact on the messaging. But it seems to be that it's a kind of a trade-off between engagement, you know, then so many of you have talked about this wonderful engagement that you have with your audiences, really a two-way relationship. It's a trade-off with that against analytics. But I thought it was really interesting how Sipho explained that actually, you know, maybe we just need to give that up, you know, and you've been able to do that even while you're still relying on advertising as income. So that's probably all I'll say. And I'll just ask if each of you, if you want to just contribute 1 minute just to wrap up or to add something. So who wants to start? Sipho, would you like to start?
No pressure.
Sorry.
So I think as journalists, we've all gone through this thing where in the last decade, decade and a half, journalists we surrendered ourselves to the platforms, and we didn't work out the business model, and that led to retrenchments. It led to sort of basically the destruction of a lot of media, which then means we have less valuable products. We don't do as good journalism as we'd like to do. We get frustrated. Readers don't get what they should be getting. And this is, I don't know if we're at rock bottom, but we're at a low point, and this is a great opportunity to believe in ourselves and start creating good products again that are packed full of really good journalism. And what's cool about events like this is there are so many people doing it, and we just got to it's hard. We got to keep believing in ourselves, and we'll do it because it's so important to get this right.
Okay, yeah, I'd just like to add from what I think Sinato, mentioned. One of the points in our presentation is tweak as you go. I think from me, Premium Times over the last 10 years, we've tried a lot of things. We've tried different apps. We've tried different, methods, ways to distribute news. Of course, you fail sometimes, you don't get the right result sometimes, then you move on. But the most important thing is you tweak as you go. You just keep trying. And with the messaging platforms, really, and when I mentioned, in my presentation about the part of analytics, for example, the ones that will actually really give you a good, a great idea of what you're doing right, or if people are really following, at the social media, the Facebook, the YouTube, the Instagram, and the likes of WhatsApp, Telegram, won't really tell you people are actually clicking links back to your site. So they are important platforms, for branding, for remaining in people's minds and faces, and of course trusting that your readers, who are on this limited group, 6 members, are able, to spread your contents across other groups. So in terms of distribution, so it's like that. And we believe in Premium Times. We believe in organic groups. We try to build distribution strategy based on that. We want to know the people who are reading us are real people, not bots and others. So, and we've tried several things as well, which I didn't have in my presentation. We actually did a bit of video to just do a summary of the news, and we push it on these platforms. We realize that people spend more time on their phone watching videos, engaging with video content than reading, which is what Sifo mentioned about us surrendering to Facebook and some of these guys. They force us to do this because we have to do it because we need to get the message out there. And so we create clips of videos, just to summarize the news, present it to readers, and so that they can consume it that way. Well, I think going forward is just to keep tweaking as you go, try as much as you can. Have a calendar, like Tabiso said, have an engagement calendar. And what we also try to do at some point is to invite, which is good when we tried it, is to, some of our big stories or our special report investigations is to get the reporters or the editor to engage with the audience for either on a tweet chat for a few minutes. Sometimes we've tried, using I won't like to call them social media influencers, so people who are active, on Twitter to engage some of the stories that we've written. And so the results have been very good. Also, we also
Last one.
yeah, exactly. So we also get feedback from friends outside the country. As a result, 20% of our traffic comes from the diaspora, and we are happy to hear that people are really interested in news from Nigeria and what Premium Times is offering. So I think it's just to keep encouraging us to keep doing what we do best. The most important thing is the journalism. Just make sure we do it in the right way, and most importantly, accountability journalism, which is what we always try to do.
Okay, that's
now this will be my own contribution.
Okay, that's great thing to wrap up on the journalism. Who, Senato, Emily, Mahida?
Oui, alors je vais commencer. Juste deux éléments qui pour moi peuvent être des tendances pour le journalisme en Afrique. La première chose, je dirais, c'est la diffusion de l'information dans les langues africaines. Ça me semble être un enjeu important et très intéressant à creuser. Comment on diffuse de l'information, comment on produit de l'information, comment on le diffuse à destination des publics qui parlent les langues africaines. Pour moi, c'est très important. Et puis, une dernière chose qui est en train de monter, on va dire, mais je ne sais pas encore quelle forme ça va prendre. C'est à nous, journalistes, d'imaginer des nouveaux formats. C'est la plateforme TikTok qui est en fait en train de devenir très populaire auprès des jeunes. Sur le continent, il faudrait que nous aussi, on essaye de réfléchir à trouver des formats innovants pour diffuser en tout cas du savoir, pour repérer en tout cas les fausses nouvelles aussi, et enfin, finalement, produire de l'information sur cette plateforme-là. Voilà pour moi les deux choses qui peuvent devenir des tendances. Ce n'est peut-être pas encore le cas, mais ça peut devenir des tendances.
Okay, who's next? Your mic.
Oh,
we can't
yeah.
hear. Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Mahida, we can hear you. Emily will come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I want to add is we live in a very challenging phase of time.
C'est bon?
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Ah, d'accord.
Okay. It's okay. So we live in a very social media phase of time, and whether you like it or not, like the generation is moving towards depending on the internet more and more. Just if we are to continue to present news in such time and be competitive in the area, we need to be able to move along the changes and make social media very reliable, news-friendly. And this kind of sessions are very essential for us, a better view on it from different perspectives and platforms, of course. So thank you. This was a very good session.
Great. Emily.
D'accord, merci. Moi, je voudrais relever surtout 3 points. Le premier, c'est cette nécessité pour les médias d'aller où se trouve le public. Et notamment ici en Afrique, il y a surtout WhatsApp qui continue d'occuper une place importante. Et je rejoins Sinatou pour la place de nos langues. Parce que WhatsApp, on n'a pas besoin d'être alphabétisé pour être sur WhatsApp. Et le succès aussi de WhatsApp, c'est parce que tout le monde peut facilement l'utiliser. Et donc, il y a de l'information qui est diffusée. Il est nécessaire pour ces médias-là d'impliquer ces plateformes dans leur stratégie de communication et de se déporter sur ces plateformes-là. Il y a aussi, et je reviens encore sur ces fausses informations, ce sont des canaux pour la diffusion de fausses informations. Et il revient encore à nos médias d'y être, de participer aussi à assainir ces milieux. Je voudrais, avant de finir, relever un point. Je pense que c'est monsieur de Continent qui avait relevé un point. Je pense qu'ils ont la chance de bénéficier de certains accompagnements de médias pour pouvoir diffuser les informations sur les plateformes de messagerie. Il y a aussi notre revers, malheureusement, et je sais qu'au Burkina, par exemple, il y a des médias qui vivent cela, c'est qu'il y a ces messages qui sont diffusés. La presse écrite, pour les abonnements, les internautes s'abonnent et facilement ils diffusent les informations, les numéros via WhatsApp. Ce qui n'est économiquement, et ce sera aussi de réfléchir sans doute à un modèle économique pour ces médias, notamment la presse écrite, pour les abonnements en ligne où il y a des pirateries ou encore des partages qui sont faits des abonnements et qui pénalisent beaucoup de médias. Et on sait, je sais qu'au Burkina, on a certains médias, par exemple, qui ont eu à fermer, qui ont arrêté de diffuser malheureusement pour raisons financières. Voilà, merci.
Okay. Okay, Taviso. We can't hear you. Can't hear you. You're on mute. It's okay. All right. There you go. No, it's not working. All right. Okay, sorry about that, Talisa. I'm not sure. Maybe you can put a comment in the chat box. And if you can share some more about your earlier presentation, that would be really great. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. What an amazing session. I guess what I would have liked to have got more into a conversation about how it impacts the journalism that we do, you know, like the shorter stories, the formats, things like that. But let's do another session on that. So just really amazing. Thank you, everybody, so much. Thank you, Richard, Emily, Taviso, Mungo, Sipo, Sinatu, and Mahida. Thank you all so much. And thanks very much to Jamfest for hosting this conversation in collaboration with IPI. Okay. Bye.
Thanks for having us, Jackie.
Singamakawe.
Sisi wenyewe ni mashujaa.
Nous sommes nos propres héros.
Tunagamba pachedu.
Nyarasachinen nok jagnochna.
We are our own heroes.
Power to the innovators, the DIYers across the continent.
Power to you who push the doors wide open.
Power to you who've planted good seed on fertile African ground. We celebrate you. Thank you for joining us. Visit our websites and social media platforms to continue the conversation.